So time now to take a look at the morning papers, and I'm very happy to say that we're joined by the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson. Very excited. She's actually in the studio.
Real life person.
Live and kicking. And the broadcaster and journalist, Afia Hagen. We'll have to get you in as soon as we can, Afia, but in the meantime, lovely to have you from your home there. Thanks so much, both of you. So, lots around both of you on the front pages, but a lot of them do lead, don't they, Afia, with the nurses announcing more strikes after the union rejected the pay offer, or at least the members rejected the pay offer from the government. And we're kicking off with the Times on this. It's their main story, isn't it?
Absolutely, and like you said, quite a few papers covering this story. So the Royal College of Nursing have decided, after a vote yesterday, that they will proceed with an unprecedented 48-hour walkout from A&E, intensive care and cancer wards. This is from April the 30th, which will take us into a bank holiday. Members voted 54% for the strike, 46% against the strike. So like I said, this will take place over a bank holiday, which is traditionally a very busy time for A&E especially. And the junior doctors are also voting on a strike. Now, they want to strike over the same time. The RCN have come back and said they actually don't want to have coordinated strikes. They don't want to be on strike the same time as junior doctors. Health officials have warned that this could be catastrophic for the NHS if you have junior doctors and you have nurses. So a junior doctor, basically anybody below consultant level. If you have nurses and you have junior doctors from any of these big unions, some of them are actually still to vote over whether they're going to go on strike. But if you have these two factions out at the same time, this could be very, very damaging to the NHS. And the thing with this is they're voting over strikes that could take place over the next 6 months. So this will take us right through until Christmas, into another winter of discontent. And now Rishi Sunak is at the point where he's facing the fact that he's not going to be able to honour the pledges that he made to bring waiting times down, to improve things in the NHS. And the NHS has been facing crippling problems for years, since before the pandemic. The pandemic exasperated things. Only 90% capacity of people work in the NHS. So the NHS only has 90% of the staff that it needs to operate fully. And of course, not all of those staff are going to be in all at the same time. Some people are going to be on holiday. Some people are going to be sick. Unless you improve the pay offer for people who work in the NHS, you're not going to get 100% capacity. People are not going to want to join. So it's really in the government's interest to get round the table with all these unions and sort this out as soon as possible and not lead to another 6 months of strike.
Well, yes, and the government in the meantime talks about the difficulty finding the funds, but also the risk of stoking inflation, don't they, on their half? And Dawn, take us to the Daily Mail, because they're also covering this, and they're raising the prospect, as Afia was talking about, of potential coordinated action. I think the latest that certainly one representative from the RCN, Patricia Marquis, was talking last night, and she said that they would have to consider the prospect of coordinated action with junior doctors, but obviously that's not a fait accompli at the moment.
No, it's
obviously
not.
Raising some concern.
Anna, you're right. The Daily Mail are raising this particular fear, and I think that for most of us and everyone watching this morning is going to be, the ultimate horror show, because we know the waiting lists have just gone up again. 7.2 million people now waiting for treatment on the NHS. And if there is a coordinated strike, I think the junior doctors are finishing their 4-day strike this morning, isn't it? I think it finished.
I think yes, exactly.
Yes, exactly. But there are potentially more strikes from the junior doctors to come, and they are timing them to happen after bank holidays again, more 4-day strikes, so that causes as much chaos as possible. The Royal College of Nursing, Pat Cullen, said, look, we don't want to coordinate, so it doesn't sound like it's something, because I think that there has to be a level of common sense in this. I mean, nobody who works in the NHS wants to see patient harmed. But, the Royal College of Nursing can't, this can be the last legal strike they do, Anna. They have to have another ballot to strike any more, but they are
to extend their mandate.
To extend their mandate, but they are saying they will do that, and that, both the BMA and the RCN are saying that, we don't want lives put at risk. The unfortunate thing for them, Anna, is that excess death rate rose 11% above average during the last round of strikes. So it is having some effect. And, there is sympathy, obviously, for striking NHS workers. I mean, sort of like, nurses and junior doctors. I mean, everyone thinks, oh, you're a doctor, you're loads of money. Junior doctors aren't highly paid, most of them. So everyone is actually sympathetic at the moment. But as Afia's just said, the longer this goes on, the less sympathy people are going to have, especially if lives are being put at risk. And that does seem to be the case.
Well, yes. I mean, do you think that's the case, Afia? Well, let's take us to the front of the Daily Telegraph, because they're calling it the most extreme strike yet, and that's because the nursing union is saying in its next strike there'll be no exemption, so accident, emergency and cancer care will also go on strike as well. What do you think this does do to the public mood?
Dawn's absolutely right. If you're at a position that we are at where you've had excess death of 11% during the last round of strikes, and during this particular strike, not just going to be A&E departments, it's going to be cancer wards and other intensive care wards as well. If these wards are going to be affected by the strikes and people do see a rise in excess death, then they are going to start thinking, look, is this strike worth it? Is it going on for too long? Should we actually think about withdrawing our support? There is a lot of support for striking NHS workers, as there is for teachers and other people on strike at the moment, because people are really struggling. You have people working full-time across various industries that are forced to use food banks. That's not what people want. Nobody should be doing that. But the effects are starting to be felt. And if we do have a position where you have this more extreme strike, where you have three, really important and huge departments out, A&E, intensive care, cancer, and excess death go up, people will start thinking twice. And that's why, like I said, it's pertinent that the Health Secretary, the Prime Minister, get round the table with the unions. There does seem to be an appetite from the unions to want to talk to the government, from the various unions, because they don't want to be on strike. Doctors and nurses don't want to be out there on the picket lines. They want to be with their patients. They want to be doing the profession that they trained and worked so very hard for, but they also want to be remunerated properly for that. So there's a real appetite to get round the table. And I think the government really need to be listening to, first of all, the unions, first of all to the people who are on strike, but also to the general public and how they are feeling about the strike. Nobody wants excess deaths to go up any more than they have at the moment. And like I said, a bank holiday is always a very busy time for an NHS. If you have workers on strike during a bank holiday, then of course you're going to see excess deaths rise even more, and nobody wants that.
Well, yes, and I don't know what the BMA would say about that, those excess death figures, actually, whether or not they would accept that the strikes had anything to do with that. We are talking to them later, we'll see what they say.
So many factors come into play. Obviously, it was the winter, there was a bad flu, cold virus going around, so many factors come into play. But just one final point quickly on that, Anna. The NHS, the striking unions are saying, we want to talk. The government is saying, we want to talk. But all of us out here are confused about who is talking to who and when they're talking. You know what? I think it'd be a really good idea for Sky to actually get in there with the cameras and film the talks. So everybody
watching... That sounds like a good idea to me.
Everybody watching knows who is saying what to whom and that they are actually meeting.
There's some transparency. And the other complication is there are so many different health unions as well, having their own discussions.
So you're going to have Unison workers who accepted the pay deal, having to be covering for the RCN and potentially the junior doctors division in the ranks there as well.
The advantage of having you in the studio, I can give you a hard stare and to say that we're out of time. So I'm going to say thank you to both of you.
Shut up, stare.